What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we are going to be taking the interior trim out of my E46 station wagon. This is kind of a follow-up to a previous video I had done where I redid the trim inside the car. I actually painted it. I got a second set of trim and painted those, so we're going to be removing my factory trim. I had actually removed this and wrapped this myself and wasn't too happy with the fact that after wrapping it, it started to peel up in some areas. It started to peel up around like trim switches and stuff like that. I like this wrap because it has texture to it, but it's very, very hard to wrap around tight things like this because it's very thick because of the texture, and I'm not the best person when it comes to vinyl wrapping. So I went the route of painting. I actually wrapped that center console trim in a separate video as well. That I've actually been pretty happy with just because it's thinner wrap. It actually stayed and looks good still, but we're going to be replacing that trim as well. So I'm going to show you how to do remove all of these pieces of trim in here. Most of them just pop out with some trim removal tools. The one around the center console actually has some screws holding it down, so I will show you how to take that off. So let's get to it. All right, so in order to remove the trim on the doors, it's actually really easy. You're just going to get some kind of trim removal tool, whether it be, they call these bone tools or just trim tools. Something like this, or a screwdriver if you have it. Just be careful when you're prying around stuff like this softer door panel, because if you have something hard like a screwdriver, it can actually do some damage to the vinyl covering on the door panel. I prefer to use these plastic trim tools just because it doesn't apply as much pressure to that stuff, but these are actually really, really easy to get off. All you're going to do is pry behind here and start popping it up, and as you can see, it pops off pretty easily. And then you're going to want to pull from the back towards the front and just go very easy when you're doing it, as to not crack your factory trim. And then this one's already broken. I want to warn you that in the front of this piece there's two tabs here. The bottom one's already broken on here, but these two tabs actually slot in behind the door handle, door opening handle. Just be careful when you're pulling this off to pull from the back out, so that, and not pry from the front, because if you try to pry from the front, you'll break these little tabs off of this trim piece. I'm not on this door panel, but on the passenger door panel, I have a couple of these that are broken and missing. I replaced these. I have replacements for these for the passenger door panel. I will put a link in the description to these where I purchased them from, so if you guys have issues with these clips that are holding these in the door, you can get your own replacements. All right, I also want to let you know that I did the trim on the average door. All of the other doors are exactly the same, including the rears. Start prying from the rear towards the front. Try to apply even pressure when you're pulling them off, just so that you don't pull tension on it weird and crack the wood. If you care about that, just a warning. So I removed all the other doors. Now we're going to take the dash trim off. This is just the same as the doors. You're going to get underneath it like this with something like a pry tool and just pry it out, and it pries out the exact same way. Just pull on it, and then I'll show you once we get it out what's holding it in. So these two pins are what's holding it into the dash, and then these red clips they just have like these teeth on them that bite into, and you can see here where there's like wear marks from it biting into these tabs. That's what holds this trim into the dash. It's actually a pretty neat way of holding it, because it's easy to pull back off, but it does a very good job of holding it. It doesn't squeak or rattle or anything like that. So this is the trim on this side. The trim across the other side of the car on the passenger side is exactly the same way. Just be sure that when you're pulling the passenger side off in your car, that you pull the piece off that's below the airbag first, because that one actually goes through a tab in the trim that goes around the radio. I'll show you that once I get that off. All right, so like I said, I'd show you. This is the actual hole that goes through this piece that goes over top of the radio, that this pin from the back of the piece that goes underneath the airbag and the passenger side actually goes through that like that and holds that piece in place. So just make sure that you take the piece off that goes underneath the airbag first, otherwise you risk breaking this tab off of this trim piece. All right, so now for our last piece of trim removal. It's actually going to be the piece around the shifter. I just wanted to show you guys how to get that out. This trim piece that the shift boot is attached to, if you have a manual car, the shift boot will pull out the same way. You're just going to pull up on the shift boot and it'll actually pull this whole entire trim ring out. I'm going to pop that shift boot out, and then there's two plug connections on this. There's one right here. And then there's one on the other side, two actually on the other side as well, that you're going to pull out. And then if you have an automatic car, this trim piece, this shifter actually just pulls right off. You're going to pull your shift boot trim off. And then inside here, let me show you guys, there's two Phillips screws holding this trim piece down. You have to undo these screws, pop the back piece of this trim up, and pull towards the back of the car in order to get it out. Screws out so you don't lose them. And then once you pull your trim up, you're actually going to have two connectors for your window switches. This connector here has two locking tabs on it that you pinch together towards the middle and pull the connector out. And then this one on this side actually only has one pinch tab on this front half right here. Oh, there's one on both sides. Two pinch tabs on either side. You pinch them towards the middle and pull the connector out, and then you have your whole trim piece out. And then one more thing I wanted to show you guys, if you are replacing your trim like I am, you're gonna have to take your window switches out and swap them over to your new trim. They're actually really easy to take out. On the back side of them, they have these little tabs here. You can see that they lock in here. You're gonna just pinch those tabs in and then pivot the switch out, and it actually has a piece here on the front that locks into the trim piece itself. So when you are going into your new ones, that's how it goes in. There's a little piece here that locks in, and then you snap it into place. So you're going to take that one out, and same thing on the passenger side switch. You're going to take that one out the same way, and then you got both your switches out to swap over to your new trim. And then installation is just the reverse of removal. I do want to warn you guys when you're putting this centerpiece trim back in that there is a tab here and a tab here on both sides that actually slots into two pieces on this trim here in front of it. Make sure that you get it underneath there before trying to push this down in there, because what will happen is if you try to just set it down on top of it like this and force it down, it'll break those two tabs off. So just make sure when you're going back together, you slide it in this way like this towards the front of the car, and then tip the back end down in. And then again, your dash goes together the same way it came apart. This pin right here slots into the pin on the other side of the radio by the driver, and you just press it into place. And the piece that goes underneath the airbag, same way. Just make sure that when you're putting this and far left end of piece are pinned through, that it goes through this tab and this other piece of trim here. And then your driver's door piece goes back on the same way you took it off. Again, I'm missing a tab on this one. The previous one I took off is missing the bottom one. This one's missing the top one. It doesn't really affect too much. It might cause this trim to stick out a little bit here at the top, but The other one was missing the bottom one and it wasn't sticking out weird, so I'm not too concerned about it. Again, make sure you slot the front half in behind the handle first. And then just press it in. And you don't really have to do too much. Just gonna do it until it makes those noises like it's popped in all the way and snaps in. And your trim is in and you're good. All right, so as you guys can see, not too difficult. Just heed my warnings about the tabs on the trims and stuff like that. These older cars, the trim's very brittle. Has a tendency to break when you're taking it apart. Just be careful. The rest of the doors go back together the same way the driver's door did. It's the exact same method of being held in place. If you guys have any questions about this, please comment down below. Be sure to answer your questions. I'd appreciate it if you guys subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you later.